What if you could make millions of people want something without changing the product at all? In 1929, a group of women walked through New York City's Easter Parade and did something that shocked people at the time. They lit cigarettes. But this wasn't just about smoking. The cigarettes had been given a name: torches of freedom. Photographers were waiting. The newspapers were watching. And what looked like a spontaneous act of rebellion wasn't entirely spontaneous. Behind the scenes was a man most of the crowd had never heard of: Edward Bernays. He wasn't selling cigarettes. He was selling what the cigarette represented: freedom, independence, identity. And that idea would help change the way people were persuaded for generations. But Bernays hadn't started with cigarettes. Years earlier, during World War I, he worked for the Committee on Public Information, part of a massive American effort to build support for the war. Posters, newspapers, films, different channels carrying versions of the same message to millions of people. Bernays didn't create the system, but he saw what organized mass persuasion could accomplish. And after the war, that raised a powerful question. If persuasion could help mobilize millions during war, what could it do during peace? By 1919, Bernays was working in New York as a public relations counsel, and he became interested in something deeper than advertising: why people want the things they want. Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, but he didn't simply turn Freud's theories into advertisements. He drew from psychoanalysis, crowd psychology, social science, and the emerging study of public opinion. And underneath this was an uncomfortable thought: people aren't perfectly rational decision-makers. We respond to emotion, authority, status, groups, symbols. So instead of asking, "What does this product do?" Bernays could ask, "What could this product mean?" And sometimes, who should the message appear to come from? When the Beechnut Packing Company wanted to sell more bacon, Bernays didn't simply advertise bacon. A physician working with him asked thousands of doctors whether a substantial breakfast was preferable to a light one. Most favored the substantial breakfast. Bernays publicized the result, with bacon and eggs as an example. Now the message didn't seem to come from the company selling bacon. It came with the authority of doctors. The product hadn't changed. The messenger had. Bernays used a similar principle on people. In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge had a reputation for being quiet and reserved. Bernays helped arrange a White House breakfast with popular entertainers. Celebrities arrived. Photographers followed. And newspapers could suddenly show a different image of Coolidge. He didn't have to say he was personable. The photograph suggested it for him. Bernays wasn't just creating messages. He was creating circumstances and letting those circumstances become the message. In 1928, he published a book with a very direct title, Propaganda. Bernays argued that organized efforts to shape public habits and opinions had become part of modern society. Years later, Bernays learned something disturbing. He was told that Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels had been using his earlier book, Crystallizing Public Opinion. Bernays said the revelation shocked him, and his campaigns demonstrated something even more important. Persuasion didn't always need to look like persuasion. It could look like news, an expert opinion, a photograph, an event, or even a spontaneous act of rebellion. Which brings us back to Fifth Avenue. American Tobacco wanted more women buying cigarettes. But there was a problem. Women smoking openly in public still faced social disapproval. So Bernays didn't try to change the cigarette. He changed what it represented. He helped connect smoking with a powerful idea: women's independence. Then came the Easter Parade. Women lit their cigarettes. Photographers captured the moment. And torches of freedom gave the newspapers a story. The stunt didn't suddenly make every American woman start smoking. But the strategy was clear. Don't just sell the object. Connect it to something people already value. The cigarette hadn't changed. Its meaning had. And Bernays didn't stop at products. He understood that sometimes the best publicity looked like an event. Later that same year, he helped promote Light's Golden Jubilee, a nationwide celebration marking 50 years since Thomas Edison's development of a practical incandescent lamp. Buildings were illuminated. Schools participated. Millions listened by radio. Electricity wasn't simply being promoted. It was being celebrated as progress. But eventually, the stakes became much higher. Bernays spent years working for the United Fruit Company, a corporation with enormous interests in Central America. The president of Guatemala pursued reforms that threatened some of those interests. At the same time, fear of communism was growing across the United States. Bernays helped shape United Fruit's public relations response. Journalists were brought to Guatemala. Information was distributed. And Guatemala's political struggle was increasingly framed as part of a communist threat. The strategy should sound familiar. Don't just change the argument. Change what it represents. Then, in 1954, the CIA carried out an operation that helped overthrow the president of Guatemala. Bernays did not run the operation, but his work showed how far public relations had traveled. From selling bacon, to making cigarettes represent freedom, to helping shape how Americans understood another country. And that's what makes Bernays important. He didn't discover a secret way to control people's minds. He understood something more subtle. We listen to authorities. We watch other people. We respond to emotion, status, identity, symbols. And often, we don't recognize persuasion when it comes through something we already trust. Today, the technology has changed. Television, smartphones, social media, influencers, algorithms, targeted advertising. But the underlying questions haven't. Who is delivering the message? Why do you trust them? What does the product, the person, or the idea represent? And who benefits if you believe it? Because the most effective persuasion doesn't always feel like persuasion. Sometimes it's simply an idea, connected to something you already value, until the choice feels natural, until it feels like your own.